Good evening, everyone, and welcome into a June edition of the Air Raid Hour tonight. I am your host, Tilt Money, and tonight we will be officially starting our summer scouting series, something new we're doing on the Air Raid Hour this year. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the running back room. We'll talk Bills contracts for their running back room and what that means for the Bills for the 2026 draft and free agency period. And we'll get to all of that and more on a brand new series for us tonight. But first,
Welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
good evening, everyone, and welcome into the Air Raid Hour. I am your host, Tilt Money, and tonight we will be talking running backs for the Buffalo Bills. What is the current situation of the running back room? What is the contract situation of the running back room? And what does that mean for the Buffalo Bills into 2026? We are in sort of the dead period of the summer for the moment. We've got OTAs coming up starting next week and training camp about a month and a half away. We expect that to be starting sometime in late July. We don't have the official start dates yet. I predict July 23rd. That Wednesday will probably be the opening day of training camp. But until then, we'll be doing a couple shows on specific position groups for the Buffalo Bills that look to be apparent needs for this team heading into 2026 and get an early jump start on the scouting process for the college prospects going into this season, which college prospects at these positions we are most interested in watching, which could be fits for the Bills, which are guys that we might just want to be interested in seeing. And tonight, we are going to talk about the running back room, which has come obviously under a lot of scrutiny and discussion of late because of the James Cook sort of what do you call them, cryptic social media tweets, maybe not so cryptic since he's being pretty clear with some of the things that he's saying. His brother Dalvin, of course, saying some things as well on social media. So before we kind of jump into some of the prospects that we want to talk about, and we're not going to go through an exhaustive list of every single running back to pay attention to in college football this year, but we'll go through about 10 guys to maybe keep your eye on. Some of these guys may not necessarily be apparent fits right now for the team, but they could become fits depending on how things evolve in the running back room for the Buffalo Bills. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about what the Buffalo Bills running back room looks like from a contract standpoint going into the 2025 to 2026 offseason. So we'll start at the top, obviously. We've got James Cook. He's got a cap number of $5.7 million in 2025, an unrestricted free agent heading into 2026. No extension yet, obviously, as of now from the Buffalo Bills for James Cook. Rumors swirling that maybe he would be a trade candidate on draft day. That didn't happen, obviously. He wasn't at the voluntary OTAs, was the only player not at the voluntary OTAs. And Sean McDermott quoting saying, we expect James to be here when he's supposed to be here, and we'll see what happens come mandatory minicamp happening next week. Next Tuesday, I believe, is the start of mandatory minicamp, or actually might be next Monday. Someone could maybe fact check me on that. I believe it started on the 10th, which I believe would be Tuesday. So, what will happen with James Cook in the 2026 offseason is yet to be seen. I think at this point, no contract extension. Maybe we as fans are kind of predicting that he probably won't be with the team beyond this season and what that means for him from a contribution standpoint in 2025. Maybe the Bills try to squeeze the most they can out of him for this year. But with that being said, no contract. And as of right now, he's an unrestricted free agent for the 2026 season. Obviously, a lot can change between now and then, but kind of operate under that assumption maybe right now that he won't be back with the team. So that's James Cook, unrestricted free agent for 2026, $5.7 million cap number for 2025. Next, we've got Ray Davis, the rookie from a year ago. He's obviously still on his rookie contract, cost controlled contract ranging from $1.1 to $1.3 million cap hits over the next 3 years, including 2025. So Ray Davis under contract with the team 2025, 2026, and 2027, becomes an unrestricted free agent in 2028. So not really a whole lot to talk about there with Ray Davis. Imagine the Bills will obviously use him for the duration of his contract. And again, remains to be seen what happens in the future with him. Don't really need to predict too much that right now, since at this point, he's not a free agent until 2028, still under that rookie contract. Then you got Ty Johnson, who the Bills decided to bring back as an unrestricted free agent this currently past offseason, early 2025 offseason. They bring him back on a 2-year deal. He carries a just under $2 million cap hit in 2025 and a $3 million cap hit in 2026, excuse me. And so the Bills obviously felt that Ty Johnson was a critical part of the success of the team last year. And, obviously that held true on the field, made valuable contributions as the passing down back, made some clutch catches. The Lions game comes to mind. The catch on 4th down against the Denver Broncos in the playoff game comes to mind, and really became a security blanket, not just as a pass protector, but chipping in with receptions as well on 3rd downs. And when given the opportunity to run, did show that he was effective in being able to run the ball. So the Bills have him back. I do expect that Ty Johnson will, finish out that contract with the Bills, including the year in 2026. So that puts him and Ray Davis clearly, on the roster. I would imagine for 2026 at this point. Then you've got Darrington Evans, who the Bills sort of have a, it's like the ex-girlfriend. You get back with her, you break up with her, you get back with her. The Darrington Evans back and forth on this team has been funny to kind of see. Obviously, the Bills value him enough to kind of want him to be around for training camp in the preseason, I would imagine. So obviously, he's only under contract as of now for this year. Likely going to be, hate to say this, but likely going to be cut at the end of training camp come cut down day. But as of right now, only on the books for $1 million cap hit should he stay on in 2025. And then you got Frank Gore Jr., who is on the team 2025, $844,000 cap hit, and on the team for 2026 as well, with just over $1 million cap hit. He becomes an exclusive rights free agent in 2027. So the Bills have the option to tender him during the 2027 offseason. So that's who you've got on the books right now. If you are the Buffalo Bills, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, Darrington Evans, and Frank Gore Jr. Of those players, that we expect to make meaningful contribution. You've got Ty Johnson and Ray Davis in 2026. You've got Frank Gore Jr. as well in 2026. So as you go into the 2026 offseason, as it stands right now, you really only have Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, and Frank Gore Jr. under contract. So we'll start talking about what that means for the Buffalo Bills and the future of this running back room as we get into the next segment of our show. And by the way, these summer scouting shows, I'm probably going to be doing most of these by myself. So we're probably going to keep these nice and clean, short and sweet, not the typical air raid hour, long form, be about 30 to 45 minute shows that we're going to do here for the summer scouting series for you guys over the next, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks until we get towards the end of June. Haven't decided yet what position group we'll focus on next week. Might we do defensive line? We might do linebacker. But we'll take a look at that sort of between this week and next week, and try to give you guys at least some names to pay attention to this upcoming college football season that you otherwise either might not have paid attention to, or just to get an early jump start on the draft process for 2026. As we know, that time period between the end of the Super Bowl and the draft does go by quickly, and it gives us just a little bit more time to do some scouting on some of these guys we like and what we like to project on that. So before we get to that, here's a quick word from our sponsor.
What's up, y'all? Khalil Shakir here. When I want Buffalo pizza, it's got to be Picasso's.
Picasso's.
Khalil Shakir. Your team, our pizza. Picasso's. This is Buffalo Pizza.
This show obviously brought to you by Picasso's Pizza, 4 locations in the greater Buffalo area, picassospizza.net. Order your pizza, get it delivered, or go right into the store, get it there as well. Delicious cup and char pepperoni, and you can find that at 4 locations in the greater Buffalo area, picassospizza.net. So as we get into the summer scouting series officially, we start talking about some of these running backs. And so, look, as I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not going to sit here and go through 20, 30 different running backs. As an apparent position of need for the Bills heading into 2026, I do want to hit on some of the top guys. And I also want to hit on a couple of the, middle tier guys that I think we should start paying attention to as well. The Bills have, in recent drafts, right, have drafted running backs anywhere between the 2nd and the 4th rounds. That's kind of been their sweet spot, right? James Cook was a late 2nd rounder. Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, both 3rd rounders. Ray Davis, a 4th rounder. So if you're kind of predicting maybe where the Bills could take a running back in next year's draft, especially if James Cook is no longer on the team, and depending on what does happen during the free agency period, I would not be surprised if the Bills then opted for a 2nd to 4th round pick on a running back in this upcoming class. Again, we're very far away from that happening. We really just finished this year's draft cycle, but just to get you an early sense of sort of what we're talking about here. And obviously, as it stands right now, and Sweet Spike says, do you think Cook will play? I do think he will. He got those incentives last year that upped his salary from $2 to $5 million this upcoming season. I really highly doubt he's going to sit and risk not collecting that increase in pay. It's a pretty sizable increase in pay. Is it his market value? Probably not, but he's going into a contract year and he's going to have a chance to cash in the year afterwards. We saw that he wasn't at voluntary OTAs. We'll see if he ends up showing up to mandatory minicamp, which happens next week. I think that will be maybe a pretty good indication of what might be, but I think he'll be there for training camp, and at worst, I think he'll be there for week 1 because I don't think he's going to forfeit game checks and get fined at the rate that he's getting now after that increase in pay. So Jessica comes in. Tilt, what do you want the Bills to do with Cook? Now, this is it's a great question. I think we've all, in our own minds, answered this question at some point, right? What do you want to do with James Cook? I think, in my heart, I'd love for the Bills to keep him, but I am not really of the mind that I want to pay a running back, $12 to $15 million a year. James Cook does some special things. He had his best year as a pro last year. I think he showed last year that he can be a complete back. He ran very well between the tackles last year. Obviously, he scored the incredible amount of touchdowns after the regression from not scoring many the year before, progressed, back above the mean last year with all those touchdowns he scored. And we saw that special play he made in the AFC Championship game where he scored on that 4th down at the goal line and reached the arm out. So there are some special things he can do on the field. Is he special enough to be $15 million a year? I don't think so, right? And so for that kind of money, I'm probably just gonna reload in the draft, and still let Josh Allen continue to be the guy that really drives the offense. The Bills have a great offensive line, and I do think many different styles of running backs can be successful in this Bills offense, especially with how well that offensive line has been playing in the last few years under Aaron Kromer's guidance. Ray Davis, I think, showed flashes last year of what he can do if given, normal in-game reps, not end-of-game reps where he's just running into the back of his offensive line and killing his efficiency numbers. But I do think that it's likely, at least to me, that James Cook is going to be gone after 2025. And I could be wrong. Do I want that to be the case? No, but I also don't think that what I would want from a dollar standpoint is going to be in the realm of possibility to keep James Cook. So he's probably going to be gone. And Noah says Jonah Coleman, and we'll get to that name in just a second because he's one of my favorites to watch. Terrian Stewart is a guy that Dexy is mentioning. He's projected to be fourth rounder. I'm actually not going to get to Terrian Stewart tonight, although he was sort of on my long list of guys. So we're going to keep that name in mind as well. And that's the great thing about this show tonight too, is if there's guys that you all are watching this year, put them in the hopper. Let's talk about them for a little bit, and we'll bring those names up as well. Music Blogger 87 says Pays, Horns, and McGovern draft another RB next year. And you know what? I'm kind of with you here, Music Blogger 87. I'd like to, I said on the last show with Judge, the schedule reaction show, that I'd love to see a Connor McGovern extension at some point. Wonder if he would test the market after this year. Would love to see the Bills get that done. We'll see what happens with Torrance as well. So as far as the running backs to kind of look out for in college football this year, we'll just start from we'll say the projected top end and kind of work our way down through about 8 to 10 names here, and then we'll kind of call it a night. But the first name, obviously, who, like Ashton Genty this year, seems to be at least the consensus top running back going into the college football season this year, is Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame. Over 1,100 rushing yards last year, an impressive 6.9 yards per attempt, 17 rushing touchdowns. He upped his reception total from 8 in 2023 to 28 in 2024. Again, largely viewed as a consensus top running back in the 2026 class as it stands right now from multiple outlets. You got PFF, NFL Draft Buzz, Mock Draft Database, all these outlets having Jeremiah Love as their top consensus back, and I'm sure there's tons of others as well. Really exciting player to watch, and probably going to be the first running back off the board come the 2026 draft if things stay the way they are. Is he a guy that the Bills could target? Probably not as a first rounder if they expect him to be kind of a first round talent. PFF has Jeremiah Love as their 7th overall rated prospect as it stands right now. Take that for what it's worth. These rankings drastically change between now and the start of the actual draft process after the offseason. But you would imagine that a guy like Jeremiah Love is of interest to many teams across the NFL, but maybe not going to be in the Bills' wheelhouse, sort of that 2nd to 4th round range. The next guy up is Mekhi Hughes, who was at Tulane and has transferred to Oregon in the transfer portal. And this is one of these things that, as I start going through these backs and you realize how many of these guys have moved around, it's a weird time in college football with all the moves. You obviously are seeing a lot of guys move year to year. It's something new. It's something we've got to get used to. Obviously, during the scouting process last year, same type of thing, and it's going to be like the new norm as well. So, talk about Mekhi Hughes. He's pretty highly rated consensus-wise across the board. Nearly 2,800 rushing yards and 22 rushing TDs in the past 2 years at Tulane. Now comes into Oregon. He's not much of a receiver, at least hasn't been, with only 30 receptions in those last 2 seasons at Tulane. 5.3 yards per carry in 28 games there. I like some of the short area bursts that he shows, but I wonder about his long speed and his top end speed. It's going to be interesting to see how he kind of fits in that Oregon system. Jordan James was like a slightly bigger back, but was a pretty good receiver. And so we'll see if a guy like Mekhi Hughes can sort of up his receiving game element of his game in that Oregon backfield that really does, highlight the running back position, especially in that program. So, an interesting year for a guy like Mekhi Hughes, who's had a lot of success at Tulane, now gets, a bump in competition, a bump not just in competition, but pretty much puts himself into one of the elite programs in college football at Oregon. And we'll see what he can do there this year at Oregon. So, Mekhi Hughes, an interesting name to pay attention to this year. The next two guys are teammates that we're going to talk about. The first is obviously a favorite, I think, of a lot of people, but he's really a favorite of mine. You've got that sort of Penn State, little bit of that Penn State sort of history with the Bills, somewhat in some of their drafts. So we're talking about Nicholas Singleton first here. I have him kind of circled, shortlisted as a guy that I'm certainly going to be paying probably more attention to this year after the success he had last year um, at Penn State with his teammate Katron Allen, both of them eclipsing 1,000 yards. Nicholas Singleton, 1,000-yard seasons under his belt, drastically increasing his reception total each year at Penn State, went from 11 in 2022 to 26 in 2023 to 41 in 2024. Could be maybe a sub 4.4 player. I would imagine he might be come measurement time. He's got a really nice blend, really, of some power and some speed. Singleton, currently PFF's number 2 overall running back in the 2026 class, only behind Jeremiah Love, and 45th overall prospect. And again, 45th overall prospect doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the 45th pick, because running backs obviously been valued a little bit less in the draft, but could be a second, it could be a third round type of player. Nicholas Singleton has 3 straight seasons as well with at least 13 kick return attempts, and has been on the Bruce Feldman freak list the last 2 seasons in a row, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was again this year. So Nicholas Singleton, obviously, I think a lot of people know him. Saw a lot of Penn State games last year. We saw how good Penn State was. Made that playoff run in the college football playoff. And Nicholas Singleton is certainly a guy that I think, with his really unique blend of speed and power, ability to receive the ball, is going to be on a lot of teams' radars come the draft, along with teammate Katron Allen, who, look, you want to think about like these thunder and lightning type pairings, but like these guys are kind of like a mix of both, right? Like it's thunder and thunder with a little bit of lightning, in my opinion, with these two guys. And really strong between the tackle runner, Katron Allen. Might not now be on the Bills' radar, but maybe an interesting guy to keep an eye on nonetheless, as a guy who's pretty dynamic and, plays in that sort of 1A, 1B role with a guy like Nicholas Singleton at Penn State. So keep an eye, I guess I would say, on both of those Penn State running backs, Singleton and Allen. I really like both of them, and we'll see kind of what those guys have in store for us after they both posted 1,000-yard rushing seasons a year ago. Going to be tough to top that, but those guys are awesome, and certainly keeping my eye on those guys. Next guy on the list, I would say right now is maybe my very early sort of draft crush for 2026 for the Bills, and really just maybe like an early draft crush overall as far as like at the running back position. And that's Jonah Coleman from Washington, transfer from Arizona. This is what Noah Sheldon said earlier in the chat. Jonah Coleman, like if you want a dog, he's a dog. Like, we used to throw that term around kind of loosely on this show, but like I'm kind of reserving it a bit for like where it really shows to me with some of these guys that I'm early scouting on. And Jonah Coleman from Washington is a guy that I'm really, really liking in this like super early summer scouting process. number 8 overall running back on NFL Draft Buzz, number 3 overall running back on PFF as of right now, heading into the 2025 college football season. Transferred to Washington, as I mentioned, after spending his first 2 seasons at Arizona. Eclipsed the 1,000-yard rushing mark last year at Washington while chipping in a respectable 23 receptions. And like I said, this guy's a dog. He invites contact. He's got a really nice jump cut. He's got some nice lateral mobility for a guy that's over 200 pounds. And just to me, seems like if you want a guy who's going to have swagger in the backfield, to me, Jonah Coleman really, really fits the mold there. So I'm very excited, I'd say, to watch Washington this year and to see what Jonah Coleman can do to back up that really solid 2024 season after he transferred from Arizona going into his senior year. So keep an eye on Jonah Coleman. The next guy I'm going to talk about is maybe going to be a bit of a surprise to people when I say I'm a little bit, I shouldn't say I'm lower on him than consensus, because a lot of places have this guy sort of in the hundreds, 150 overall prospect range. But I think there is a lot of buzz about this guy going into this college football season. And for me, like, I want to see what he does at this program. And this is another transfer. And I'm talking about Jaden Ott, who was at Cal and is transferring to Oklahoma for his final year, graduate transfer after senior year that was kind of filled with some injuries. It'll be interesting to see sort of how those injuries affect him in 2025. Oklahoma obviously has a long history of putting out very good running backs. Jaden Ott transferring from Cal to try to maybe like up his draft stock a bit as well. Had over 1,300 rushing yards in 2023. Obviously, the injuries I mentioned shortened his 2024. 95 career receptions. So you love that part of his game as a receiver out of the backfield. And he has a really good sense for the ball sort of out of the backfield, I would say, in sort of watching some of those games at Cal. Knows where he's supposed to be for the check down, knows how to kind of use his body to make sure he's in position to make some of those tough sort of sideline catches out of the backfield. But look, I'm on the fence with Jaden Ott. I can go either way with him. If he shuts me up and has like an amazing 2025 season, I'll kind of maybe get a little bit higher on him. But I think right now I'm just a little bit neutral on a guy like Jaden Ott, but certainly should be on our radar to watch this season in college football. Another super interesting guy who is in the transfer portal and going to a new program this year after having some success at his previous program in Cal, and will be very interesting to see how he performs coming off of those injuries this year. So Jaden Ott is a guy to watch at Oklahoma this year. Next guy on the list, not Le'Veon Bell, but Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. Not a huge pass catching back, only 22 career receptions, but did average an impressive 6.3 yards per attempt last season at A&M. 121 carries for him last year was his career high to date, to go along with 10 rushing TDs. So he was able to find the end zone, doubled his touchdown total from 2023. Another guy who had injuries, season-ending injury, shortened his 2024. So we await to see what Moss can do as he decides to return for his senior season at Texas A&M. This is a guy who was a former track star in high school, had that notable quick first step, has big playability, and again, we will just have to see how he performs coming off of that injury. That's Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M. Another guy, and I put him on the list along with Jaden Ott because I want to see how some of these guys perform coming off these injuries. And if Moss can put together a really good season coming off that injury, then maybe he becomes an option sort of in those middle rounds. So we will see about a guy like Le'Veon Moss. We've already talked about Katron Allen, so I'll move on from him. Next guy up, another sort of, I want to say crush, but not to the level of Jonah Coleman, but certainly a guy that I would say is sort of on the verge of becoming a favorite of mine, and obviously depending on kind of what he does this year, but it's certainly on the verge of becoming a favorite of mine, and that's Darius Taylor from Minnesota. Two really solid seasons of production so far as a freshman and sophomore. In 2024, he really blossomed as a pass catching back, hauling in 54 receptions for Minnesota as the centerpiece of that Minnesota offense. Now, his efficiency numbers dropped from a yards per attempt basis, but that's because he also had more carries and did more damage out of the backfield. I'm really excited to see what Darius Taylor does in 2025. In my early scouting, I'm in on him. He is somewhat of an upright runner. He reminds me, and I'll say like early in the process, I'll just do it kind of based on sort of not comps, but he reminds me a bit stylistically of a guy like Rashad White from Arizona State a few years ago, who we really liked in the process and has had pretty good start to his career with Tampa Bay in the pros. So Darius Taylor from Minnesota reminds me a bit of Rashad White. Let's see how he follows up that 54 reception campaign from a year ago this season at Minnesota as a junior. Would expect him to come out. He is eligible, obviously, if he does decide to come out. Put him on the list because I would expect him to come out in the draft in 2026. So Darius Taylor, another guy along with Jonah Coleman, who I'm kind of got this early buzz on, early kind of vibe, feeling good about, and that's Darius Taylor of Minnesota. So certainly want to put him on the list. And again, like just to take a quick pause here, I'm not going to be going through every running back in college football. Just don't have the we just don't have one, the time, and two, the reason to do that right now. We're just kind of giving these short lists for now, and we'll obviously do our full scouting come the draft prep. These are just guys I'm kind of excited to see. And Noah, I'm going to get to Justice Haynes in just a second because he did make my list for today. But the next guy on the list is a very interesting transfer. And normally you expect guys to transfer from, maybe smaller programs to bigger programs. But this guy is the opposite. And I'm talking about Amarian Peterson, who's transferring from USC to UTSA to look for opportunity. Get a chance to compete for a starting role. Perhaps one of the biggest wildcard prospects in this draft has had super limited opportunities at USC to this point, but has talent, was insanely productive in high school, but obviously that's a long ways away from now. But a wild card, right? A wild card in Amarian Peterson going from a bigger program to a smaller program. We've seen guys from smaller programs still have success in the NFL, still get drafted. We love the guy like Kamani Vidal in the draft process. Last year, we loved smaller suit guys like Marcus Yarns. This year, Delaware. So it's really interesting to see when a guy transfers from a bigger program to a smaller program for that opportunity. And I think that tells me something about Amarian Peterson, that he really believes in his ability, that he wants to showcase and feel like he deserves a chance to play. And playing football to him, I think at this point, at least signals to me, means more than staying at a bigger program where he may not even get the chance. So he is going to take that swing at a smaller program and try to get his opportunity to showcase what he can do. So that's Amarian Peterson, UTSA. The next guy up is Justice Haynes, who was just mentioned by Noah Sheldon. Another transfer who will be playing at Michigan this year from Alabama. Again, limited opportunities at Alabama. He was limited to 104 carries across his first two seasons there. Now gets to land in Michigan, where running backs have feasted over the past several seasons, and we'll see what Justice Haynes can do. Again, the track record of Alabama running backs has been pretty good as well, so we see how he transfers to Michigan for that opportunity. And Justice Haynes as a guy we should be keeping our eyes on from Michigan this year as the transfer from Alabama, to see what he can do with those opportunities. And then finally, this will be the last guy I kind of talk about tonight, who I have a little plus next to his name as well, because he's a little bit different of a guy, smaller guy, but Desmond Reed, a Western Carolina transfer to Pitt. I have to mention at least one North Carolina guy, right? Not necessarily Chapel Hill, but a guy from a North Carolina program in general, Desmond Reed, transferring to Pitt from Western Carolina, the big jump up in competition from the Western Carolina Catamounts to the Pitt Panthers. Racked up 52 receptions with Pitt last year in his first year at Pitt. So I should clarify that he was at Pitt a year ago, when played his first 2 seasons in Western Carolina. Nearly broke 1,000 yards on the ground last year with Pitt, 966 yards on 184 carries. He's a shorter back. He's only 5'7", but offers upside on special teams. 13 kick return attempts in 2024, including 1 kick return for a touchdown. I really like Desmond Reed. He's kind of like, I would say, a lighter version of Devin Singletary, but a little bit quicker in the short area than Devin Singletary. I like Desmond Reed. I think he could be really good as a pass catcher. I think he could fit in a system like the Bills, where they kind of really use 3 guys, or they have been at least using 3 different guys with Johnson, Cook, and Davis. I could see a scenario where Davis becomes the lead back and a guy like Desmond Reed becomes a third down back in the future in a life with Ty Johnson as well. So we will see. But Desmond Reed, obviously a guy who worked his way up and kind of got himself that opportunity at Pitt after transferring a year ago, and made the most of that opportunity as a junior last year. And we'll see what he can do to follow up that campaign in 2025. So that's all I've got for tonight. That Jeremiah Love, Mekhi Hughes, Nicholas Singleton, Jonah Coleman, Jaden Ott, Le'Veon Moss, Katron Allen, Darius Taylor, Amarian Peterson, Justice Haynes, and Desmond Reed. It's at 10 or 11 guys I think we can keep our eyes on this year in college football, plus others that you all have mentioned as well in the comments section. A new thing for us that we're doing this year, obviously, with this series, and I think it's certainly going to help me when it comes to the evaluation process, as I kind of like get a preemptive opinion, I guess, on some of these guys and see how it kind of plays out. But I'm really excited about sort of what happens one way or another with the running back room with the Bills. Obviously, it's going to be sad to go maybe see James Cook go play with another team in 2026, but I do think he sees it out and does play this contract out in 2025, and then we'll see what happens beyond that. Next week, we'll see what position group we'll do on this series. I'm thinking probably defensive line, since we've got still a lot of question marks for 2026 on the defensive line. Joey Bosa not under contract. AJ Epinesa not under contract. The main guys under contract really are rookie Landon Jackson, Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders, Gregory Rousseau. So you kind of have your starting players set, but no Daquan Jones under contract, no Joey Bosa, no AJ Epinesa under contract. So Noah, actually, that's a really good point. Do linebackers next, maybe safety. I do think linebacker is certainly going to be one of the positions we do as part of this series, because Judge and I talked about that too. Judge wanted to do linebackers. I think it makes sense. We didn't really scout linebackers a ton for the 2025 draft, but I think we will need to for the 2026. What becomes of Matt Milano? Will we see Matt Milano play out the last year of his contract in 2026? Will guys like Dorian Williams take a step up? Will Ulofoshio take a step up this year? Don't know, right? I don't think Balen Spector's long for the Bills beyond his situation. But the Bills have had 5-6 linebackers on this roster every year. And, you got Andreessen. Is he going to make the team again? Like, a lot of people are penciling him in to make the team. Like, I'm not so sure that is the case. And we're likely going to do wide receiver as well. I think we may do linebacker and safety in the same show. And then maybe we'll do a show for wide receiver and sprinkle in a few offensive line in there as well. RJ says we need Ray Davis to take a serious step this year. The thing is, I just don't know. He got 113 carries last year. I just don't know. And James Cook only got just over 200. What does that mean for him to take a serious step? Like, are we going to see a more even split? Is it going to be like a 150 maybe? Like, I just don't know. I feel like the Bills are going to try to squeeze everything they can out of James Cook this year. Maybe Ray Davis does take a step, but maybe it's not necessarily in like more attempts, but maybe it's just like maturity, efficiency, things of that nature. So we'll see, RJ, on that one. I think that the eye to the future of the running back room certainly projects, as it stands right now, for Ray Davis to be penciled in as the starter in 2026. Obviously, the Bills will make other moves at the position, and that's why we're kind of talking about scouting these college prospects as we head into the college football season. But yeah, I think Ray Davis, again, knowing that we've got him for this year and 2 more years beyond 2025 at minimum, certainly would be expected to take a step up in contribution in some capacity. So that'll just about do it for us tonight. Thank you all for sticking with me on this solo show. Hope it was fun for you guys. I know this was kind of a new thing for me and for us on this show to do this summer series, but I've liked it. It was the first time we're doing it, and I've liked it. So really appreciate that from all of you. And, I would just say that thanks for your contribution again in the comments section. I know in the summer months, we've kind of hit this lull a little bit. There's not a lot of news. Obviously, Josh Allen and Haley got married this past weekend, so congrats to them. Bills on Hard Knocks. I don't know if we've talked since then because we were off on Memorial Day. So a little bit of news coming in, but nothing too crazy. And we'll see kind of what happens with this James Cook situation. So do appreciate you all. Went a good 40 plus minutes, was right on target for what I wanted to do. We'll get this on the pod for you tomorrow. And we do appreciate that in the comment section as always. So thank you again. And until next time, go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!